This is the unrestricted free agent.
Oh, he's just going to go out there and kill him.
Wow. Welcome into the program. Glad you're here. And I just pulled my microphone completely off the table.
Oh, I think South Carolina's catching Clemson. I really do. Not what we've seen so far. They haven't closed the gap.
Defense, I'm going to tell you right now, they're nasty. They're going to be nasty all year.
You know, I want to repent and apologize. I haven't really seen that.
When you see black and white and you're calling it purple, I got problems with that.
And I told you, it's all about the deer talk.
How about that for a start? Hello, best time of the year to be a sports fan. Welcome in. Last night, there it was. Now, you guys know I'm kind of cheap. I don't have the Valley Sports package. Love the Braves. Hardly get to see them. They were on Fox last night. Braves baseball, double college football, NFL last night. All going on. All the clunky flipping between I just did the YouTube TV and the Amazon Prime was not fun as a spoiled sports fan, just ready for or used to instant access to all the games. So I had to wait like 20 seconds like in between to get to one to the other. But beyond that massive inconvenience, what a fun night. What enter Sandman up in Blacksburg. And then West Virginia putting a hurting on the Hokies. George Pickens making an absolutely unbelievable catch for the Steelers, and yet the Browns get another win, go to 2-1. Coastal Carolina, very little problem in Atlanta with Georgia State. How do you feel about that from the Gamecock perspective? On the eve of taking on the team that just beat Georgia State by a point last week in Charlotte. On the cusp of a couple of weeks to try to get right after a difficult start to the season and one of the most embarrassing losses. I'd say the most embarrassing loss in the Shane Beamer era. I think that's fair. Tennessee last year was pretty bad. And then the Braves couldn't score a run last night. They lose 1-0 to the Phillies. That was disappointing, but just getting to watch the game, always fun. And having the end of season feel getting towards October now, love it. I'm not going to be too bitter as we start this morning. Happy Friday to you too, DC. Chris on the Facebook live stream. Good morning. Says morning, Tim, and fellow Gamecocks. And Craig in as well. You guys notice it this week? I'm sure you do. If you're going to work, going to school, or talking to your kids, picking them up from school, being online, not a lot of discussion about a game against an opponent that I think most of us aren't used to even having a football team. When you think about college football, you don't think about Charlotte. Busy day today, Chris says. He's already coming in being demanding. What time we doing picks? I'll have to come back and help out. Not great games last night, Craig says. All right. Well, this is a great example, I think, of where Gamecock fans are this week. Not in the best mood. 1-2 start, embarrassed on national television against the defending national champs, number one team in the country. Wasn't close. Now you're playing a couple of games that even if you completely dominate, you're not going to feel great about your team. You're just not. And just classic there. Not great games last night. I'm not trying to argue they were great games, but Thursday night, full slate. I'm not going to complain. And Chris, we'll start the picks process at 9:30 this morning. I think it worked well in week one. We went 4-1 against the spread. Solid. I think we'll keep the same process. I'm not superstitious, just a little stitious. Steal a classic line. Get a little adjustment here from the camera. Oh, is that it? There we go. I think that's the perfect spot right there. All right. So I think just by you guys Chris and Craig right there. You sum up exactly where the state of South Carolina maybe sits this morning on September 23rd. I think Clemson fans are a little quietly uncomfortable, might be the best way to put it. Where's the line at? 7.5. So clear favorites, but Clemson Wake Forest, Clemson only being a 7.5 point favorite when they're the number 5 team in the country. That tells you a ton right now. I mean, Liberty is a 2-point conversion from beating Wake in the same stadium that Clemson will be playing in tomorrow. That was 1 week ago. And the number 5 ranked team in the country is a 7.5 point favorite. College football, man. I love it. I love it. And we'll definitely get your predictions today. It won't be quite a typical, but the 21.5, 22.5 or something like that is where the Carolina spread is. Last week it was 24.5. All right, Chris letting us know he'll be back. He's normal. All right, Chris. Coastal Carolina, 41. Georgia State, 24. 3 tackles injured for Georgia State on its offensive line. Part of what they were playing through. Grayson McCall goes down in this game for Coastal Carolina. I believe that was in the 4th quarter. Didn't look awful. He stayed in uniform. He wanted to go back in the game, but they had it pretty well in hand. And they ended up, the backup quarterback got hurt too, I think. They ended up with the 3rd-string quarterback that had enough after the game, man. It's hard not to really like Jamie Chadwell. He's honest. Like, yeah, I think we dominated the game. Kind of score wasn't indicative. And, yeah, we thought it was a fluke last year when they beat us. And we thought they played dirty. How about that? He gave them like the old triple threat. Dominated the game, score not indicative. Last year was a fluke, and they played dirty. He gave them all 3 after the game. He's not afraid to do that. Not afraid to tick people off. He did it at Charleston Southern, right, with the Citadel. Everybody down in Charleston remembers that. They got rooms out. And he is going to bring it. He told his team before, which I think it's the opposite, right? He says you can't spell ATL without teal. Well, there's no E in A. So I think it's can't spell teal without ATL. But they went to Atlanta, and I think the team got the point, and Coastal Carolina took care of business. Again, easier in a lot of ways than South Carolina took care of Georgia State. Now that they're depleted. And after the game, I was just listening to Sean Elliott. I don't know if anybody on the team's been 0-4 before. I haven't. It's a rough schedule for Georgia State to start, right? At South Carolina, home against North Carolina. You're supposed to win at home against Charlotte. You get upset by a point, and then Coastal Carolina comes into Atlanta and beats you. Oof. That's how it goes in college football, man. Yeah, Craig, that pick and catch, though. If you guys haven't seen that thing, it's very reminiscent of Odell Beckham Jr. You're going to directly compare the two. I still got to go with the original. I think the original was deeper and a little bit more off balance. This one was still off balance and leaning back, but he almost got like parallel to the ground, it looked like. So it seemed maybe, and he brought it into his body a little quicker, I think, than Odell Beckham going down with one hand. Fantastic catch. And Carolina fans know about George Pickens and what he did at Georgia. DC coming in hot. If Marcus Satterfield's offense doesn't cover, he should have to wear a ski mask for just the season. Well, now that he's down on the sideline, that would be interesting. Anthony, it's all right. I hope that means your Thursday night went a little extra well. Because good morning, UFA is a little late this morning. Good job. Your track record, man. You built up plenty of cachet in the UFA savings account. And that's where Jamie Chadwell is too, man, with Coastal Carolina. He can say things like that. You can say things like that when you back them up. And that's also just maybe Chadwell is. He's gonna shoot from the hip. Boy, gonna start calling him Tequila Ant. Love it. Love it. So, that was my primary game last night. The atmosphere at Turner Field was just such a bummer. There's so few people there. It just it wasn't even close to big time college football, which was at Virginia Tech. Unfortunately, the game got away. It was a pretty decent game through 3 quarters. They got a pick six there at the end. West Virginia had already made it relatively comfortable, and then a pick six sealed it. And I think Gamecock fans should look very carefully at that Virginia Tech program. Dramatic swig. What I mean by that is Virginia Frank Beamer made Virginia Tech, right? And this is not a Beamer connection kind of thing. Even if Shane Beamer wasn't at South Carolina, his dad wasn't the coach at Virginia Tech. If it was different people, I would say the same thing if the programs had kind of if the programs were so similar in my mind, in a lot of ways. Maybe it's because I grew up in North Carolina and made those trips, had some family up in that were Virginia Tech fans. So I made those trips back in the late 80s, I think it was. The home and home series, fantastic with Virginia Tech. And how both schools, their football schools. Virginia Tech has been pretty good in basketball recently. Mike Young's done up there. Good for them, man. But I guess with Frank Beamer exiting, Steve Spurrier exiting, those jobs having to be filled, Justin Fuente was one of the hot coaches at the time, right? It was kind of Tom Herman number 1, Justin Fuente number 2. Everybody gave Virginia Tech a ton of credit. Oh man, they did their coaching search really, really well. There's no drama. All of a sudden, they just put the news out that Justin Fuente is going to be their coach. Didn't work out. Now, it seems to me, Virginia Tech is in worse shape than South Carolina. Evidence of that, South Carolina's backup quarterback transfers to Virginia Tech. Knows he can't play at South Carolina, looks around. Virginia Tech says, no, we'll take you. It's pretty direct evidence, I think, of one program being slightly above another. On the field, Virginia Tech lost to Old Dominion this year. South Carolina hadn't played great. They're 1-2. I'm not trying to tell you that the program is strong and vibrant and intimidating to the rest of college football right now, but I do think it's better than Virginia Tech's. And knowing everything that Frank Beamer built Virginia Tech into, you can take a little pride in that, can't you? You can take a little pride in that if you're South Carolina at this point. I don't know. Maybe you guys see it differently. As a big win for West Virginia, which I've mentioned before, is also a program that is pretty parallel with South Carolina, I think, through the years. DC, that Georgia State win never had luster. Stop it. I know you're salty this week, man, but don't tell me that Georgia State win is quickly losing its luster. Stop it, man. It's ridiculous. Attaboy. But at least you did stay up for the Sandman entrance, and it was worth it. Yeah. No. You can't, DC, you cannot compare the South Carolina program with Florida. It's not. No, and they're not. They beat the number 7 team in the country to start the season this year. They turn around. I get it. They almost lost to South Florida last week, but their only loss this year is to Kentucky, which is in the top 10 right now. Billy Napier has added about 1,000 people on the staff. Recruiting is going straight up. And the Florida program is much different. I think the South Carolina and Virginia Tech programs are very similar, West Virginia as well, with inherent built-in advantages and disadvantages. West Virginia, not a power football high school prospect state. Virginia, same way. They got more players in the state of Virginia. It's larger, but we also have more competition, right? South Carolina, same deal. Florida is a completely different animal. Not even the same conversation. Daddy-o. Just complaining about the weather or pointing out it was 96 yesterday, going to be 50 tonight. Welcome to South Carolina. Oh, that ain't South Carolina to me. It was 96 yesterday and 95 today. That's South Carolina to me. But sometimes we do skip over a mild fall or a temperate fall and go right into it. I got no problem with that. Troy, your thought last night is Virginia Tech is really bad. What a great entrance coming from a Clemson fan. Troy says Clemson, South Carolina, and Virginia Tech. Three best, in my opinion. Three best what? Oh, entrances. Gotcha. No. Yeah, that's what we've been told. It was a great win, DC says. DC, you got to stop listening or taking coach podium talk on face value. You got to understand what it is. You got to understand where the program is as well. And Shane Beamer, he's coaching his 17th game as a head coach tomorrow. So of course he's not going to come in like Steve Spurrier did and be like, yeah, we won the game. Supposed to win the game, not happen. No, wait. He hasn't even won double-digit games in his career yet, right? Last year they're 7-6. This year he's won 8 games. He's 8-8. Lee, let's do that math right. No, is he 8-9? He's 8-8. Yeah, he only coached 16. 1-2. Yeah. Yeah, that's a problem, Craig. I noticed that as well when Marcus Satterfield says we played 3 really good defenses and puts Georgia State in there. Georgia State ain't a good defense. They're last in the Sun Belt. It might have just been pass defense. It might be overall defense. Whatever it is, it ain't good. And that's a problem. And here's where you can feel better about that as a Gamecock fan, possibly. Here's what could possibly balance that thought out or that feeling is that there are no excuses the next 2 weeks. You can't hide. There is nothing to hide now. Everyone knows South Carolina, offensively especially, defense struggled last game. They've got injury issues. There are issues on that side of the ball as well, but the track record is much stronger through 16 games for Clayton White as the defensive coordinator than it is Marcus Satterfield, the offensive coordinator. There are no excuses. There are just none. There is nowhere to run and hide. There is no getting around it. There is no explaining it away. You can only say we're close so many times. And so those explanations / excuses, however you want to see it, that mindset, I should say, we're getting towards the end of that. We're getting to, hey, this is what we're trying to do. And Sean Elliott was really, really clear last night with the way that he approached it and sounded a whole lot like Steve Spurrier. We got to make some changes. We got to do things. Whatever we're trying to do as coaches is not working. And that's on me, he said. That's on us. Yeah, DC, I hear you. I said Tuesday talk is cheap. Done buying the excuses. Greg, I think the last time we scored more than 40 points was Ole Miss, and they scored like 56. And Muschamp was back. How about in the bowl game? Did Carolina not get to the 40s against North Carolina? The offense was good against North Carolina. You got to admit that. That did happen. The offense was good against Florida last year. The Tonester coming in. Don't mean to damper our hopes, but Charlotte covers the spread due to our depleted defense and their senior quarterback. Missed their first 3 games, but he's back. It'll be high scoring both ways. 38 in bowl game. All right. 40-year open. I hear you. Yeah, I think that last explanation is a pretty representative right now of where our Gamecock fans are. But no, as well, college football's goofy, right? Sometimes how it all adds up on paper, it doesn't end up like that in game. We know that too. We could see let me say this. How do you guys feel like Carolina has played through 3 games? Just A through F. I think it's been C minus at best, don't you? Just just themselves. I'm talking about what they can control, the effort you've seen, the execution you've seen. And I think most probably would give a D, don't you? Don't you think that's fair? I think these coaches self-evaluate and self-scout. I mean, they don't like to, some of them, and it makes sense to a certain degree that if you're talking about your program and love and your positive, energetic kind of personality like Shane Beamer is, that you don't come out and be ultra critical about your team, right? As opposed to if you're Steve Spurrier and you're a national championship winning coach and your team is not winning football games or not performing at a national championship level, you're coming out and being ultra critical of your team. And that's the mentality that Gamecock fans, I think, got used to. Even Will Muschamp, after the Outback Bowl wins, as we all understand this is not the goal, and we got plenty of coaches who've been part of championship teams on this coaching staff, and that's going to be the standard. Never seen this before. BAD equals D. DC says, "Oh, okay. So I think you're going B for the first game, A for the second game, and D for the third game. I'm doing the math and coming up with the D total. Doesn't make any sense. Or you're just saying bad. Maybe I'm overanalyzing that. C minus, Craig says. I think C minus is very fair, but I think it's also kind of on a bit of a bell curve, right? Depends how you what you expected going into the season. And again, I expected better. I didn't expect Duke's Mayo Bowl quality every single game. And I expected an offense looking more like that than the one that we've seen, looking much more like the Carolina offense through the 12 regular season games last year. The numbers on both sides of the ball, unfortunately, this is where I should bring up the numbers, right? In that tweet from Sports Talk Media Network put out earlier this week, all these numbers, national ranks in the 100 plus out of 131. Total offense, scoring offense, total defense, scoring defense, rushing offense, defense, third down conversion and defense, and turnover margin. So that is the very logical, rational explanation, I think, for our conversation and its tone this morning. My question, or I will be very interested to see how the next 2 weeks affects that. I think, unfortunately for the Carolina program, you don't get nearly as much credit with good performances here in the next 2 weeks as you could possibly get blame if it's not good, if it's not dominant. It has to be better than good. Let me amend that. It's got to be dominant. That is the only standard right now. Shane Beamer can come in. I feel like this will be the first time he gets seriously criticized by Carolina's own fan base. I know there's been some outside noise this week, and sensitive Gamecock fans are saying the national media is turning on Shane Beamer. Stop it. It's ridiculous. The national media doesn't care about Shane Beamer. They don't care about a South Carolina team that's 1-2. They're irrelevant. And he hasn't done anything extreme. If you want to listen to extreme voices about one sideline look on a in between quarters recognition gone wrong, then that's on you. But that's not the national media, college football turning on Shane Beamer. Stop that. But and the important part is the relationship between coach and fan base. And that's where Shane Beamer really has shined. And then national people probably don't understand that, right? Makes sense. They don't pay attention. They don't know. But I feel like some Carolina fans have raised their eyebrows, maybe have tilted their head a little bit and been like, really, you're telling us you're going to celebrate that East Carolina win? Well, it was on the road. It started at the beginning of the season last year. Just just starting to get going, yeah, you got to get some wins, right? Come in, you're going to say you're not going to apologize for winning against Georgia State. Okay, got it. If you're celebrating a Charlotte win and it's not a good performance, I think you'll get a different reaction from Carolina fans at this point. But I think Shane understands where his team is right now, where the perception of his team is, what the perception of his team is, and especially his struggling offense, all the criticism, in my opinion, the very well-founded criticism, is that the best way to put that? Earned criticism. The response we get from the reaction that we get from Saturday night's game will be interesting to me as well. We bounce back, BW says. Trust in Beamer. My question, BW, is how good does that make you feel? And what is a bounce back to you? Is a bounce back covering? Because DC says if the offense doesn't cover, it'll be a disappointment. And that's the other thing too, DC, right? You can cover and still have a disappointing offense, even though what's the spread? Let me double check that thing. I think it's right at 22. But Carolina won the first game by 21, and the offense wasn't good. And I assume the game plan will be very similar. The thought process will be very similar. You got the advantage in depth and talent, like Shane Beamer said after the Georgia State game. So you're going to try to make some plays any way you could, like blocking punts for touchdowns in that first game. Double-checking line right now. We'll be doing this frequently through the Friday show.
On an urgent Fansville.
Sorry about that. We have a reputation to uphold now on the show. A lot of pressure going in to week number 2 of our picks after going 4-1. 22.5 is the line that we're going to put it on. That's what I'm seeing right now. Bounce back would be 50-plus points, 50-plus to nothing kind of game, DC says. Well, that's the most ridiculous definition of a bounce back I've ever seen. I mean, that didn't even happen against Eastern Illinois last year, right? I don't think they got out of the 30s in that game. And that was one of the worst teams we've ever seen come into Williams-Brice Stadium. Charlotte's not that. Charlotte's coming off a kind of program revitalizing win, getting their quarterback back. Will Healy, on the whole, I think, done a really good job with that program. Pretty respected as a up-and-coming coach. Pulled off a win against Duke a couple of years ago. Charlotte. And how about this, too? In 2022, good morning to URL. If you guys are a little bit bummed this morning from the Gamecock perspective, I get it. If you're Troy and you're a Clemson fan that's a little concerned about the possibility of maybe you're like me. Certainly, there are people like me, right? You lose tomorrow at Wake Forest, Clemson's run of dominance is over, in my opinion. It's over. I mean, it actually ended well before last season, right? But in my mind, I can give them a pass. They are the number 5 team in the country. Defensive line is really, really good. They still got really, really good players and have recruited really well in the program. They could still, I mean, they're one of the favorites to get back to college football playoff this year for that reason. They were one of the favorites to get the college football playoff last year too, and showed that they weren't that same program. But a loss tomorrow at Wake Forest. Wake Forest hasn't beaten a Clemson ranked team since like 1945, maybe 1948, a long, long time. So to me, that would be the sign that Clemson in 2022 is not what the Clemson program had been in those 6 years, the dominant run. So that would be the signifier to me. Troy weighing in on the Gamecock spread, because I wouldn't touch it. Seems about right to me. Okay, keep thinking, Troy. We're going to come to a consensus about our 5 picks. Craig says, me and DC need to build a fire and hug. Team has beat us down. Well, that's kind of what we do every morning, right? Got the virtual fire behind us with Williams-Brice Stadium on the green screen. This is kind of my flashlight, the microphone around the campfire. You guys are weighing in, sitting right beside me on the live chat. I love it, man. Got the coffee here brewing because you don't really cook up coffee around the campfire, right? That would be great right before bedtime, maybe. But remember, one of the reasons why we love college football is a lot of times it doesn't make any sense. You see the college football headline yesterday, don't buy it. NCAA probation for LSU football violations. They've been self-imposed, those violations. Basically, the NCAA saying, yeah, we'll accept what you guys have been doing. You had an idiot assistant coach who Ed Orgeron had to fire because he was giving out stuff and meeting with recruits during COVID. He's got a 3-year show cause penalty. That means absolutely nothing to him because he's in the NFL now, former offensive line coach. Basically, just the only thing I take from this is if Brian Kelly has any issues down at LSU, the punishment for those might be a little harsher than they would otherwise, being on probation. Pretty much a non-story. One on the ticker yesterday, I saw. Tonight, we got ACC football. ESPN, Syracuse is a 10-point favorite at home against Virginia. We got the ACC Friday night game right last week, where it was the road favorite, Florida State, going to Louisville, losing its quarterback in Jordan Travis, and yet still finding a way to win that game. When that happened, I felt good about our picks. Because as I was watching that game, I did not feel good about our picks. 5 road favorites against the spread. But and I thought Malik Cunningham and company were going to go run away with that game after Jordan Travis goes down. He's such a vital part of that team. Has turned into a pretty good college football quarterback. And has always been really athletic and able to run, but has matured and figured out when to pick his spots. They'll throw the ball down the field. They got the playmakers. But Louisville was in control of the game, and then Florida State was able to come back with its backup quarterback. That was a big win for the show. It was a big win for my confidence going into the Saturday, and then it rolled from there. Got the first 4, and then Mississippi State screwed it up. So I think it's probably a good sign that we didn't go perfect on the weekend. We'd be feeling way too good, way too full of ourselves here on the show. So I'm getting more used to the idea of Friday night football, and the ACC clearly got this nailed down. This ain't your granddaddy's Wake Forest, but Clemson should always beat Wake. It's definitely different. Charlotte put it in the air. I think we get 2 picks. Rattler finally doesn't turn it over. I'm trying, folks. Feel free to put a number on it, Craig, if that's your prediction. Syracuse, a surprise so far. I'm glad. I really like Dino Babers. Yeah, Troy. Their thumping of Louisville to start the season was shocking. Now, to be a 10-point favorite, is that what it said? That's what we had it at, right? But I looked up 10-point favorite tonight at home against Virginia. I didn't see that coming preseason for sure. Craig, because I think Clemson is a lock. The defensive line will get after Wake. Okay. Craig, you're getting ahead of yourself. But for first prediction today, in for that Carolina-Charlotte game, 43-20. Marshawn Lloyd gets at least 115 rushing yards. I think that would be acceptable, and that's kind of what I mentioned as being kind of, in my mind, the absolute minimum for to call it a good game. You limit Charlotte to 20 or fewer points. You get in the 40s. You get good things to happen on offense. You're able to run the football. I think Gamecock fans would sign up for that right now. You wouldn't You wouldn't say, oh, boy, this is ideal. It makes me feel a whole lot better in the whole thing. But I think you'd take that right now, wouldn't you? I think you'd have to, especially after the problems of last week. 45-21 for me, DC says. 21-7 at the half. So both you guys, the saltiest guys all week long, DC and Craig, are still going with a cover here, right? A cover by a half a point, Craig's saying, and then a cover by a point and a half. Is that what we got there? Both of you guys think they'll still cover. If that doesn't sum up Gamecock fans, I don't know what does. You guys are great. Love it. Craig saying Rattler will throw for 325-ish. I mean, salty all week, talking about being in campfire, need to hug it out, and then still predicting 20-plus point win against a team that just beat the team that you opened with and struggled with, even though it was a 21-point win. Fascinating. So I'll go through a few more games, a few more spreads as we get a good idea, get a sense of how you might go with the picks. 7.5 again, the spread. Wake Forest getting 7.5 at home. Clemson a 7.5 road favorite. Missouri at Auburn. Craig's really pumped about this game, or really was earlier in the week. Auburn fans know it's an absolute must to get this game. Trying to bounce back from the embarrassment of getting blown out at home by Penn State. Missouri hasn't been good so far this year. To me, this is an ideal, kind of perfect Eli Drinkwitz, going to sneak up on him and beat him. And it's not really going to do a whole lot for the program, but it's just enough to kind of keep it going where that program has been. And this is one of those things where the other team gets a lot more blame than you get credit for. Missouri goes in and wins. Wouldn't shock me. And I do think Auburn would immediately pull the plug on Brian Hart. Immediately. Maybe wait until Sunday. But this has been the story for a while now at Auburn. The real SEC headlining game, 3:30. Tennessee, Florida. To me, this one is, and I think we've asked the question, maybe we asked it last year. I forget when. Maybe it was the Alabama game, or I think Tennessee played with them for a little while. Like, hey, is Tennessee back? Josh Heupel have them there? And we go through Tennessee's season last year. Double check this thing because I want to make sure I get this accurate. Tennessee football 2021. So finished in the exact same record as the Gamecocks, right? 7-6. But they lost their bowl game to Purdue in overtime by a field goal. Let me get this thing popped up here. And I knew the Alabama game wasn't close. I didn't want to say that 52-24 was the final score. I'm thinking maybe it was close early on, and it looked like it was relatively impressive. So going through the schedule now. Florida absolutely thumped Tennessee last year, early on, by the way. Fourth game of the season, 38-14 in this one. And then Tennessee bounced back, putting up 62 on Missouri. And then it seemed like in the 60s against the Gamecocks the following week, it was only 45-20 the final score. Lost a close one to Ole Miss after that. 52-24 the final in Tuscaloosa the week after that. Big win against Kentucky on the road by a field goal following the Alabama game. Relatively uncompetitive, like everybody else. 24-point loss to Georgia. Then South Alabama win, Vanderbilt win, losing to Purdue in the bowl. So the question here, is Tennessee back to being anywhere close to nationally relevant? They don't win this game, stop it, Tennessee fans. You're at home. You're taking on a Florida program that completely imploded last year. You're a double-digit favorite. You can't win the game. Shut up. That's how I see Tennessee right now. Stop it. Shut up. Don't want to hear it. Now, their offense has been tremendous. Hendon Hooker is a really good player. Columbia's own Jalen Hyatt there out wide, leading Tennessee in receiving. Frustrating, I think, for a lot of Gamecock fans. They won 59-10 against Ball State. Barely beat Pitt by a touchdown, but did it on the road against the defending ACC champs in week 2, 34-27, and then just beat Akron 63-6. The offensive numbers amongst the best in the country. Can't do it against Florida. Shut up. Can do it against Florida. Then you go on the road, you beat LSU, and you're 5-0 at home against Alabama. Now you got something. Now you can get your banjos out and get going on Rocky Top. You can't do that, though. Stop it. Because look at the rest of the schedule, too. You get a break after Alabama, but then you got Kentucky coming in. So 3 top 10 opponents in 4 weeks after you go to LSU, after you play Florida. So you're going to have to prove it. Kentucky's 8th in the country right now. Right after Kentucky, they go at Georgia, then at home against Missouri before. So Alabama was number 2 there. Home against Alabama after LSU, then Kentucky and Georgia. There's 3 out of 4 weeks. And then, by the time they get to Williams-Brice Stadium on November 19th, the second last game of the season, they've been through it. They do have a game against Mizzou at home the week before Carolina kind of get right. But I love that this thing is back to being a relatively meaningful game. Not good for the Gamecocks, don't get me wrong, nationally, to have those numbers beside Florida and Tennessee, those top 25 rankings. Not good. RL. We'll get to that in just a second, actually. DC says, I think Tennessee will run away with it, and I can't trust that Anthony Richardson can keep scoring with Tennessee. I think they cover. Whew. So you guys are high on Tennessee in this one. Good morning to you, sir. Kens, good to see you out there weighing in. Thanks for being a part of the show. RL back on Carolina and Charlotte. Hopefully the Gamecocks can scrimmage their basic offense and hopefully get personnel healthy and rested. That would be ideal. I think the game is 28-10 for the Gamecocks. Nothing too flashy or exotic. That's a lot of hope there, RL, but what are you basing that off of? Are you just saying that they don't have to? I see this as completely the opposite. Completely the opposite. Like, if this team had shown that they have a running game, that they are a level above a Sunbelt program, then maybe I could understand this. Or, you did put hopefully in there twice. So I understand the hope in that. I don't understand the reason. I don't think that's logic. TA says, have mercy, RL. They'll burn the place down if it's 28-10. I don't think so. You hold Charlotte to 10 points right now. That's a defense that I'm not expecting on Saturday. It's certainly not what we saw last Saturday. And it's a challenge right now for Clayton White to get guys on the field. Steven giving the advice on the Facebook live stream. Take Auburn because if Missouri wins, Harsin is definitely gone. I go with Tennessee and say 45-14 Gamecocks. Wow. Remember, though, Steven also saw our picks last week and said, I'm taking all 5 opposite. Appreciate the advice there, Steven. But I don't understand. Take Auburn because if Missouri wins, Harsin is definitely gone. But are you saying that you have a lot of confidence that Auburn wants to rally around Brian Harsin? And then 45-14, you just drop that with no explanation? I need more on that, Steven. And then I think Tennessee's going to run away with it, huh? They're going to score their share of points. but I think they're going to give up their share as well. And I think it is kind of an Anthony Richardson. Is he one of the better quarterbacks in the SEC, or did he just have a pretty good game against a Pac-12 opponent in Utah and can't replicate that? You can't do it on the road in the SEC. Can't do it against a Tennessee defense that's not going to scare a lot of people, I don't think. The Tonester. Remember, RL, we're not in the top 99 in any category offensively. Maybe that's offense and defense in a lot of ways. No, I didn't see that, Craig. Tank Bigsby buying the whole Auburn team with Beats headphones. Good for him. Good to see that NIL money is coming in good for Tank. The numbers aren't good for Bigsby so far this season. I think he's in the low 200s maybe through 3 games rushing the football. Not what Auburn needs for them to be successful, for them to have their coach keep his job. Speaking of unsuccessful teams this season, Notre Dame at North Carolina. How about that? North Carolina, which hasn't played great this year, still a 1.5-point favorite against Notre Dame team that started top 5 in the country this season, preseason top 5. Something to keep an eye on there Saturday afternoon. And then the big primetime game in Arlington, Jerry's World, Texas A&M, a 2-point favorite against Arkansas. That line is tremendous, isn't it? All right, Steven's trying to explain. I'm trying to be more optimistic than my normal viewpoint of being realistic / negative concerning Carolina, because if they struggle against Charlotte, this should be Marcus Satterfield's last game. Whew. That would really surprise me. Especially with the tone of the conversation. And maybe that will be Shane Beamer's style, but I don't see that. Either way, I do see this as a bit of a Fredo situation. You guys understand what I mean by that? Big Godfather fan. I'm not alone. I don't think I am trying to convey this as an original thought. Best 2 movies made of all time, in my opinion. I put them at the top of my list. Godfather 1 and 2. And when you are a head football coach, I think you are very much like the godfather of the program. And Shane Beamer's got a lot of Michael Corleone characteristics, in my opinion. First of all, his dad was a very powerful guy in the same position. Very, very much kind of like the let's see, Michael Corleone was like a war hero, right? So obviously not that, but kind of well liked by everyone. That's Shane Beamer, right? And then has surrounded himself with people he is familiar with. That would be, we're going to continue this analogy. Pete Limbo is Robert Duvall, right? Consigliere. He's had the experience, been there before. I mean, he almost, I think they have a similar hairstyle. Forget if Duvall had much hair back then. I don't think he did. And then, unfortunately, Marcus Satterfield has been Fredo in a lot of ways. Let's see, does that make, who was the other brother? I haven't watched it in forever now. You guys help me out. The James Caan character. That is, oh man, I almost had it. Got a dummy on here. James Caan, Godfather. Godfather. There it was. Oh, it didn't even pop up. Come on, man. You guys are yelling right now, and you should be. Sonny. Thank you. Thank you, Google machine. Sonny. There you go. Brandon, appreciate it. My fault. Craig explains a lot about you. You got a lot of Bill Gunter in you in that way, my friend. I say that lovingly. I've never seen The Godfather have at it, folks, or Scarface. He's a guy that goes to the concert on the season opener. You guys are very similar. Yeah, Jimmy Kahn, did I say something different? Probably did. Sorry, Brandon. Thank you. You memorized Friday, though. Yeah, you guys, you might be the same person. So the Godfather analogy there, basically what it comes down to is you got to make some really tough decisions, right? Obviously not to the same degree of how awful those decisions were in The Godfather, but you do have to make tough decisions, and you got to do it with people that you like / love. I don't know how Shane Beamer would term it. He is talking about the love and the program and the whole thing. That is very anti The Godfather, I think, in a lot of ways. Maybe that's kind of, well, it was the family, right? Don't go against the family. But at some point, this is like when everybody else knows, like, that's your weakness, that you gotta make tough decisions. And if you can't score points against Charlotte and South Carolina State in the next 2 weeks, well, there you go. Greg's right on cue. Concert next Friday in Charleston, Firefly Distillery. Good for you. Good for you, sir. Live music guy. I would venture a guess that a lot of live music guys aren't Godfather guys. Makes sense. I'm not a live music guy. Godfather guy. Craig says he likes Arkansas. The A&M offense is not good. You're right. I think Shane, yeah, he's good. They haven't been able to throw the ball. I think, fortunately for them, Arkansas can't stop the throw. They're dead last, I believe. Brandon saying take that fishing, symbolically, of course, metaphorically. Yeah, that's a great question there, TA. I think 55 is about right. I think the official attendance will certainly be over that, but good seats going to be available. At least it's the night game. I think you'll get better attendance tomorrow night than you will the following Saturday against South Carolina State, unless Carolina just absolutely runs up 70 points or something. But the noon kick against SC State, I think, is a bigger challenge to get people in Williams-Brice than the 7:30 game against Charlotte. And you do have, I think, Charlotte people will travel. Certainly there'll be some SC State people there. The band will be there. So you got that to help, which I think will be necessary. Steven says, I don't like Auburn, but they will find a way somehow. I love Arkansas against A&M, even though the pass defense stinks. Also like North Carolina against the Irish. Ooh. I don't know if I like any of those, Steven. I hear what you're saying about Auburn. Maybe. I think that spirit might be broken. I think Harsin might have lost that team. He might be done. I think that could be it. I don't know, man, about the Arkansas. I certainly think KJ Jefferson is the best player on the field. And I don't know if it's going to be close in that one, but that Arkansas pass defense is bad. And you gotta figure that Jimbo Fisher can scheme something up to get his pass offense going. And if they do that, you have not the home field advantage, but I feel like, I guess it's technically neutral site. I was going to say in my head, I thought it was at Kyle Field to begin with, so I got to get that out of my head. It's a massive game for Arkansas. And then the Notre Dame, North Carolina thing, I don't know, man. I got to think Notre Dame's got better players than North Carolina, especially that North Carolina defense. Not good. And then Steven at least has a sense of humor about it. Says, of course, in my record, I'll probably lose them all. Arkansas controls the ball on the ground and plays keep away. But that's the thing. Like, you look at this thing going in, and yeah, that's absolutely how the game's going to go. But you play keep away, and your pass defense gives up big plays. It doesn't help your cause too much. Troy, you can tell he is really cautious going in the weekend. That Clemson mindset, I think, against Wake. I wouldn't touch A&M, Arkansas, or Notre Dame, North Carolina. All right, Troy, at some point, instead of just saying you're not going to touch anything, you got to give us something that you might feel good about. Just give us something, man. And did you guys see this thing? I think it was put on social media. It's a Utah student. I guess they have a nuclear reactor near campus. She'd actually taken classes dealing with it or relatively close access, saying that she was gonna threatening to go nuclear, literally, if Utah lost last week, and now has been arrested because of it. She said it was a joke. Police did not see it that way. And that's where we are in college football 2022. How about that? Just wanted to throw that out there, make sure you had heard that story. Kids, don't joke on social media. Just don't do it. You don't have much to gain. Maybe unless your parents think it's funny. Or if you can run it by an old person like me and they think it's funny and okay, then maybe that should be your barometer. But most of us would probably say, yeah, that's pretty funny, but you shouldn't put that out there. Okay. Troy says, tough games this week. There's 4 that I like. Is that what you're saying there, Troy? TA, I see everybody loves Arkansas +2. The boys in the desert know something we don't, wouldn't touch it. Yeah. But remember, we were saying that about Oklahoma and Nebraska last week too, right? It was the easiest pick maybe of all time. You only had to give 11 away, Oklahoma at Nebraska, after they got rid of Scott Frost, after they've proven they're just not a good team at all. And it followed suit. That was the game that was the free sample. The drug dealers hand out, I should say. The Vegas boys hand out a little free sample to get you going in the 2022 season, to get some unrestricted free agents out there feeling good about themselves, puffing up the chest maybe. Well, I'll take it. We'll take it, especially with no units on the line here on this show. So I like you guys' mindset here. Troy's admitting he's got 4 he likes. This is turning it into, hey, this is what we think. There are only so many Saturdays, make them count, right? This is what we think is going to happen. Maybe we're feeling a little too good. Hope, good morning to you, ma'am. Happy Friday. See, now it is Hope. She's coming in with exclamation points, the good energy. Hope, we need you to balance out some of the other guys we got in here. Because ultimately, Hope knows, hey, it's football season. Guys, last night, 2 college football games, an NFL game, Braves game on. I couldn't ask for anything else. Hope, done. I'll get you one. Coming your way. We'll make that happen. You got to have good energy, she says. Nothing we can do about any loss. Okay, then, Hope, let me ask you this. What score will make you feel good about Gamecock football? Not hopeful, but will make you happy, let's say. What score will satisfy / make you happy tomorrow, Gamecocks in Charlotte? Because we haven't seen a lot of predictions. Roger, another sunny outlook this morning. The energy is moving up. I love it. Love the direction of this show. York, attaboy. Thank you, sir. You can check these guys out on social media. I don't even know where exactly. Just put it in the old Google machine. It'll pop up. That's your motto, York? Well, you got to get one. Hope says, I want to see them score in the 40s, but she predicts a similar score to the Georgia State game. I think that's very fair. You notice how she did that too? Got to be positive. Got to bring good energy. Hey, what's going to make you happy? Well, let me tell you what will, but let me tell you that I don't think it would happen. Love it, Hope. Again, you guys summarizing where Gamecock fans are as we're rolling into hour 2 on the show. Love it. And as we do that, I need to tell you about a sponsor for the program. And I'm happy to tell you about Freedom Primary Care, who I trust to take care of my family. That first word there, massively important to me and my family right now. Freedom Primary Care going to give you the freedom to choose your choice of care moving forward. Choose your choice. Choose your path of care moving forward. Would never have thought that was a thing. Thought that was kind of an inherent ideal in not just our country, but kind of being a human being. But apparently other people have different ideas, not at Freedom Primary Care. That is why I recommend you give them a call, 803-627-2447. They're located up in Fort Mill, near where I am right now. But if you are not near that area, they got telemedicine options. It's the 21st century. You can still take advantage of Freedom Primary Care and know that it's a place that if you want to go the more natural-minded route of care, they'll take you down that path. If you want to go the more conservative, traditional route, they can certainly take you down that route of care as well. But they're leaving the decision up to you. You'll get the information. You get to make the decision. A novel concept in 2022, right? Responsible to you, not responsible for you. That's Freedom Primary Care. Please support those who support this program. Really appreciate your support on the show today. All the comments. Hopes it's got to bring common sense too. Good point. Only thing I could have asked for last night would have been a Braves win. Even they did win 10 in a row at home, and then now they've lost their last 2. I hear you. New York says only so many Saturdays in the sense that I don't take Carolina home games for granted. Some look at the weather or the opponent. Great way to look at it, York. I mean, and even if you do look at the weather, it would be a great day to be at Williams-Brice Stadium tomorrow, right? You only get so many Saturdays at home. You do have a chance. You want to look at it extremely positive. Let me give you just a little bit of this as we play something that might not help you feel good about it. So, and this is the thing that I think is sticking with a lot of people going in to tomorrow. Marcus Satterfield this week, weekly press conference, offensive coordinator, asked about what needs to happen now for the offense to get going. Here's the response. I think this sticks with a lot of people, but if it does happen tomorrow, if it does click, I think the opportunity is there to start feeling better, to start possibly putting your hope into the 2022 offense becoming something much better than the 2021 offense was, and something in the form of an identity, because right now it's just not there. And that has led Marcus Satterfield to say this heading into this week's game against Sharp.
Again, it just takes work. I know that's the boring answer and everybody rolls their eyes, but I mean, you just have to keep working and you have to keep getting timing together and you have to keep playing games and you have to keep screwing up and figuring out why you screwed up and getting that fixed. So I honestly, truly believe that we're getting really close based on, I mean, our kids are great. I mean, they are freaking bought into our process. They're bought into the way we practice. They're bought into our plan. I mean, they're up here all the time. They're up here last night at 7:30, 8 o'clock at night, trying to bully their way into personnel groupings on third downs. I mean, we have a good time together. We work hard. We fight. We make up. We laugh. So, I mean, it's a strong, strong group. Had a great meeting today, and just, I think we're getting close. Just nobody wants to hear it. It just takes time and takes a lot of hard work.
At least he knows nobody wants to hear it, right? What people don't want to hear anything. People want to see results, right? You can only hear it in the off season, right? You can hear programs based on love and everybody's getting closer, the culture's getting better. You can hear all that then. Not now. Adam, close to what? Close to me getting a girlfriend? That's funny, Adam. And Craig answers close to getting fired. If they're up there all the time, why aren't they better? Craig says in all caps. And Troy says, just trying to keep his players confident, in my opinion. No. Well, that's the thing, man. You can't feed fake confidence at this point. You can't. And Craig, to add to your point, if they're up there all the time and the whole thing, I mean, Satterfield at least didn't paint the picture of everything being rosy and we're laughing all the time, and yeah, they fight with each other and then they make up and the whole thing. And what's why you say he doesn't seem to have a clue? Because he's saying they're close. Well, what else are you going to say, Stephen? You can't say what fans are saying or what critics are saying. Like Corey Miller was on and says, I think he's got an NFL mindset, and it's clearly not working in college. You can't say, I mean, if you want to take it a step further and say that it doesn't seem like he's the guy. It just doesn't seem like he has a good handle on the job. Or I think I've seen it elsewhere on social media that there's a knack for play calling and he ain't got it. I mean, you can't say that, right? Because that North Carolina bowl game did happen. And I keep going back to it, I know, and you can only go back to that so often. I think probably too much even at this point. It seems to be the unicorn, doesn't it? It seems to be the massive exception. How did that happen and the rest of it turn out how it's turned out? I mean, North Carolina's defense wasn't that bad, was it? Hope says the players have to find the confidence themselves. They shouldn't need a coach to give them any. And guys, let's be very clear here. This is not a confidence issue. I went to the University of South Carolina, was around the football team. They weren't good. It wasn't because they didn't have confidence. They lost 21 games in a row. There was plenty of confidence on that campus with football players. When you play in the SEC, you got confidence. Now, you might not play confidently, and I get that, but that is not going to come from coaches. It's just not, and especially saying you're close. That's what losing teams have to say. That's what teams who don't make plays have to say. Because what else are you going to say? I mean, you can go the Steve Spurrier route. I did hear Sean Elliott say it after the game last night. They're 0-4. We got to make changes. Whatever we're trying to do either isn't getting across to the players or they're not able to do it. That's bad coaching. We got to change it. Shane Beamer doesn't quite have that publicly critical personality, right? Or hasn't been grizzled enough as a head coach to get there, maybe. Hasn't been beat down by enough losses and fan complaints and criticism. Maybe he's always going to be a pretty sunny head college football coach in his public dealings anyway. Maybe that's always going to be. Maybe that's his choice. Maybe he's chosen that. Maybe that's who he is. I don't know. I don't know if he knows right now, right? 16 games in, 8-8. Yes, Troy, absolutely. It gets old for fans, though. And even Marcus Satterfield clearly knows that, right? He's like, yeah, I know it's a boring answer and you don't want to hear it. But that comes with the territory. If you don't succeed, you're getting paid a lot of money to do a job, then you got to answer why. And if your only answer is, I don't know, or we're real close, bosses can't accept that at a certain point. The question becomes, from where I sit, where is that point? I don't think it's after this game. Somebody put that in. If Carolina doesn't score 40 points or really get the offense going in this game, then the offensive coordinator's out. I don't see it being to that point. Maybe it is, though. I don't know. I don't think any of us know. I don't know if Shane Beamer knows. Again, he's 16 games in, 8-8. That's part of what is so fascinating, though, about the Charlotte game. Throw in SC State again next week. You have to. There is no benefit of the doubt I mean, in South Carolina, I think the coaching staff anyway, they should feel pretty good that Charlotte just played well. They got a win, I think, as opposed to just absolutely nothing to worry about or just no concern. Everything icing on the cake and just feeling like the world is completely against them. They're due to play an amazing game. They got a really good game last week. They got to win. So you get that program going up, the odds of staying up there. The great Pat Monteith from North Greenville baseball, the odds of playing great game and following it up with another great game, they're not good. And that should also help you feel good about where the Gamecock performance might end up on Saturday after playing really poorly. Georgia deserves a lot of credit for that, for sure. They had something to do with it, but Carolina didn't play well. And Arkansas is their best game of the season, right? And we say that, and that one wasn't. I don't think Arkansas was threatened in a lot of ways in that game. Interesting time in the state of South Carolina. So, what are you more confident in? I think from the South Carolina perspective, I don't know what you would be. I think it's even money here that Wake can keep it competitive with Clemson, or that the Gamecock offense gets going against Charlotte. What are you more confident in? I love to hear that. Nope, that's exactly the last night. 1999 is the last football season. I graduated in the spring of 2000, TA. So if you want to be like my dad and blame me for being a jinx on the program, you certainly can. More confident. Carolina's offense has put some numbers to this, right? Wake covers, or Carolina goes, I've been saying 500 yards total offense. That's probably too much for this. Plus 450. I think I might even put that out on Twitter. I like that. I think that would be that's a difficult question to answer. I don't think there's a ton of confidence either way from Gamecock. I don't know how you have a ton of confidence either way. Let me put it that way. I think maybe that DJU is not going to make plays, or that they're not going to make the move to Klubnik. TA says Gamecock offense would be the answer. Put my faith in my own before I put it in Wake Forest. Wow. So for Gamecock fans, maybe that's like the hierarchy, right? Is that at the bottom, like Vandy and Wake Forest, where you put your confidence in if you're of a certain age, like apparently TA and I are? Craig says, I did think before the year Arkansas and Georgia were our worst matchup. Shouldn't get much tougher than what we faced. Tennessee's a bad matchup, but more style than physicality. I think it's very fair. Texas A&M, same kind of deal, I think. Actually, the reverse of that. I think physicality is going to be the problem with Texas A&M and not style, because for whatever reason, it hadn't been a good matchup for South Carolina ever. There's no answers, choosing not to answer between more confident Carolina plus 450 total offense against Charlotte, or Wake Forest covering 7.5. Sounds like there might be a lot of neither in that one. I think that would be fair, but we gotta use that to get to our picks here. Where'd you guys spend your time last night? I think let's see if I have to do it percentage wise. How did that work? I went all college football with the Major League Baseball with the Braves game in between. I went West Virginia, Virginia Tech first. Coastal Georgia State game got more of my attention after the pick six. Kind of, it looked like Virginia Tech was going to win that game. And this is also this is part of how I watch sports, and how COVID really changed that, or didn't change it. Really helped me recognize it. Like the environment really matters when I'm watching. If people are really into it, that somehow gets me in too. So on paper, Coastal Carolina and Georgia State certainly much more locally relevant. And we've already seen Georgia State play at Williams-Brice. We saw Charlotte just play Georgia State. So much more South Carolina relevant with Sean Elliott as their head coach and the whole thing. But when I'm watching a game and there's hardly anybody there, or it's just kind of a dull atmosphere, it's not very enjoyable for me to watch that game. And that's what it was at Turner Field last night, the old Turner Field. So I spent most of my time packed out Blacksburg Thursday night, Enter Sandman, had it going, Lane Stadium. But West Virginia just ran away with that game in the second half. So then I go over to Coastal and I see Grayson McCall go down, and it didn't look that bad, so I'm hopeful. It looked like a relatively common wrap up of the quarterback. He goes down and he didn't get back up, and that was bad for sure. And you saw him, it looked like it was a right leg injury. I think they said it's an ankle deal, but he had to be helped off. And it looked like he was just walking kind of gingerly on it. Didn't look major to me. He didn't get out of uniform. He stayed on the sidelines. He actually put on the penny to signal in. He said on the broadcast that he wanted to go back in, and Jamie Chadwell, the coach, said no. So hopeful that thing's not going to be major. I think afterwards they said, yeah, not sure. I don't think there's a lot of clarity. I don't think there is a lot of clarity to this point on the prognosis of Grayson McCall, the great Coastal Carolina quarterback. And then backup came in, was able to run the football a little bit. I think he got hurt, and then third string guy came in, able to make a play or two. After the game, Jamie Chadwell hits him with the triple threat there. But he didn't think they thought they dominated. The final score not indicative. But last year was a fluke when Georgia State beat them, and he thought that Georgia State played dirty in the game. Hit him with all three. Good for Chadwell. He's that guy. So I probably ended up kind of splitting my time, maybe 33% West Virginia, Virginia Tech, 33% Coastal Carolina. So that leaves us with 33%. No, or maybe 16 and a half. Watched the end of the Braves game there, the ninth inning. Nothing happened for Atlanta, lose 1-0 to the Phillies, and then was able to flip over and watch the end of the Browns Steelers. And the Browns, how about that big win? Massive catch for George Pickens. You guys haven't seen that, check it out on social media. Just all you got to do is put in Pickens, and it's very Odell Beckham Jr.-esque catch. Not quite as good, not below in my mind. But Jacoby Brissett, he almost scored on I think it was a fourth down. It might have been third and short. On a inches to go quarterback sneak, there was a gap over to the left. He goes over like maybe 1.5 steps, shoots the gap. And I think if he was trying to score, he would have. He was trying to get the first down, so he was really low. And the defender was able to just kind of tap him down or guide him down since he was already expecting a bunch of contact. But that was odd. I think somebody, maybe even on the broadcast, might have said, Herb Street might have said it looked like a video game kind of thing. Maybe saw that on social media. Young Judah, good to hear from you on the show, sir. I'm more confident Wake will keep up with them. Craig says I was flipping to both college games, rarely watch the pro game because I have to close out YouTube TV, switch to Amazon, and that's a pain. I'm with the Craig, same thing. Roger was working, but he followed the Coastal Georgia State game. All right, interesting stuff. I mean, it was a great night last night. It reminded me of why I love October, especially when you get all the football and the postseason baseball. Not quite there yet in baseball, but we're getting close. And it's definitely feeling, to me, back to normal, if that makes sense. No COVID stuff keeping us from just truly enjoying it and probably overemphasizing it and truly being what feeling like sports felt like before the world kind of went nuts for a little while. All right, why don't we start formulating these picks? I know I said 9:30, but because we're not getting, I think, predictably, no pun intended, not getting a ton of Carolina-Charlotte predictions with that game being what it is, where are we going to go with picks? It took us a while to talk it out last week, but it was a good formula because we went 4-1. Now, this is all college football picks. You can be, if you want to be obscure guy and go a Nevada and whoever Nevada is playing or New Mexico State, you can throw it out there for consideration. This is something we kind of need to come to a consensus on to a certain degree. And if we need someone to make a final decision, I'll be the guy. But we're going to go 5 games against the spread. Everybody has a voice here. RL was kind of our lead picker last week. Troy says he feels good about 4 games this week. We still pick the Kansas game. What are we talking about? That's Craig does that pretty consistently. Just comes up. Oh, was it Kansas and Duke, right? I think there are 5 major college football teams that are still 5 games between undefeated teams. And the Kansas Duke game is one of them. Incredibly. I was reading about the Kansas quarterback yesterday, how he played as a 17-year-old freshman and kind of surprisingly ended up getting an offer to Kansas where he was headed to Middle Tennessee before then. Played as a freshman, was the worst statistically quarterback in the country that year. Ended up, I think, getting beat out or had the possibility to redshirt, I think, last year, maybe is how it went, his sophomore season, and ended up coming in late, getting the starting job late. They still gave him the option to just play the 4 games, and instead he decided to play the last 2. They didn't win the games against TCU and West Virginia, but they were really close. And now he has become one of the best statistically quarterbacks in the country. Jalen Daniels, who we're talking about. Kansas quarterback. Kansas favored by 7 on Duke tomorrow in Lawrence. Watch out. Kansas and Duke football. Never, ever, 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 ever did I think we'd talk about that game. And yet here we are. Thank you, Craig, for bringing that up. DC says, I say stay Southeast teams. Well, we'll certainly probably focus on those. Like last week, I got them written down right here. We did the Georgia-Carolina game. We did the Auburn game. We did Mississippi State-LSU. We did Florida State-Louisville. So 4 out of the 5. Then the Oklahoma-Nebraska game was the other game that we picked. I'd say that's probably going to be, that feels the most comfortable for me. Mostly ACC or SEC games, and then maybe one. I mean, when you had low-hanging fruit, like Oklahoma only giving away 11.5 points last week, I think we had to take it. Did it. We knew what it involved, that it did look like a sucker game from the Vegas perspective. We still took it, and we laughed at the boys out in the desert the whole way. Take that. That happens just enough, I think, for Vegas to keep all the nice, shiny buildings and keep raking in the money and get everybody coming back. All right, so I want to, if you had one game in college football to put all your, to bet the ranch on, where you go. This is how I want to do these picks. I want to know what that is, and then I want to hear why, and that will convince us, I think, whether or not we should add that to our list of 5 games. That's all we're doing. Entire country. Does anybody have South Carolina on that list, one way or the other? I think if you do, and you got it as a cover for the Gamecock at 22.5, I need to hear why, for sure. I think that would be the surprising one. I think you want to tell me that you think Charlotte covers automatically, you pick that one, and you're confident. I think most of you would be on that side of things. Seems like the momentum right now would certainly go that way, and And yet, Carolina did cover 21 against Georgia State without playing well. That's why it's such a scary game, I think. I got very little feel on that. But just go over some options. Tonight, Syracuse a 10-point favorite at home against Virginia. If that one was on the road, I would be fascinated to know what that would be. I think it would probably be 6.5, maybe Syracuse. Look up what Virginia's done this week, because I think they've been surprising in that they haven't been so good. Been a little disappointing. They're sitting at 2-1 though. I shouldn't say that. Brandon Armstrong's only got 2 touchdown passes. Only beat Richmond by 17, then got thumped at Illinois 24-3 and barely beat Old Dominion 16-14. So Old Dominion almost crowned themselves the king of Virginia college football. They've beaten Virginia Tech earlier in the year, almost beat Virginia as well. So that's why. I mean, that's highly concerning. You played Richmond and Old Dominion, and you scored a total of 50 points against those two teams when you're Virginia. You've only scored 53 points in 3 games. Illinois shutting you down to 3 points. And Brennan Armstrong on that list of really good ACC quarterbacks. A pretty long list of good ACC quarterbacks coming in, and just for whatever reason has struggled. That Tony Elliott doesn't seem to have that team anywhere close to where he had Clemson offenses for sure rolling. So that's why Syracuse is 10-point favorite. Hard for me to believe in a lot of ways, but when Syracuse started the season like it did with the 31-7 win over Louisville, I think they're sitting at 3-0 and a 10-point favorite in the ACC. College football, man, love it. So the 3-point win against Purdue last week, then a massive win against UConn, 48-14 is where Dino Babers has his team. They got Wagner after this, and then they go 3 out of 4 games. 6 straight games. Yeah, 6 straight games for Syracuse after that. NC State, which is 12th in the country right now, at Clemson, Notre Dame at home, at Pitt, which is ranked right now 24th, Florida State at home, at Wake Forest. From an ACC standpoint, you can't get a tougher slate than that. You just can't. Then you finish at Boston College. That's rough. So Syracuse better win them now, right? They could presumably be 5-0. They win this game tonight. Going to beat Wagner. Could be 5-0 at home against NC State, and I would imagine close to ranked in that. DC says Tennessee cover. No way Florida can keep up or shut down that offense. Yeah, Craig, I think I'm with you here. He says, I get it if Troy, a resident Clemson fan, doesn't think so because it's his team, but I don't think Clemson is a lock. My concern there is putting my confidence in DJU. And Troy's worried about the pass defense. Sam Hartman versus DJU, I think everybody, even Troy, maybe especially Clemson fans, take the Wake quarterback in that battle, right? Fortunately for Clemson, it's not just a battle of quarterbacks. Roger's saying 41-20 Carolina won't be a real blowout, and that wouldn't be a cover. So that would be a Charlotte cover. I think that's what I've been talking about as kind of the minimum goal, right? Get to the 40s, hold them to 20 or less, and Roger predicting the minimum. Craig agrees on Tennessee, and he says Clemson. That's the 2 he feels good about. Yeah, and I'm with you on that. I don't think Hartman will have time to pass. He's proven that he doesn't necessarily have to. He can still make plays. But when you're a 2-point conversion away losing to Liberty the week before, I have a difficult time picking Wake in that one with just 7.5 points. So I'm going to write down. You guys tell me if you're not feeling good about Tennessee here. That spread, man. I don't know if I feel good about that one. 10.5. It was 9.5. I think Tennessee will win the game. I think they're going to score a bunch of points, but I think they're going to give up their share of points. If I had to go anything here, I would go over in this game. Let's see. I think we looked it up earlier. I think it's like 62 over under. A bunch of points. 10.5. A bunch of points. See them winning by 11 or more? I don't know. I'm not writing that one down yet. So the first two, we got Wake minus 10.5. Excuse me, Tennessee minus 10.5 and Wake plus 7.5 is what Craig's thinking. Okay, Craig. Roger says Clemson will cover on the road. Their D is very good. I think we're all in agreement on that one. And are you guys with me then too? If that doesn't happen, if the opposite of that happens, if Wake wins straight up, Clemson is no longer an elite college football program in my mind. They don't deserve that spot. I'm not saying that someone else gets put in that category. I'm saying that I just take them out. And I got Georgia, I got Alabama, I got Ohio State, and that's it. Right now they're in there. They deserve to be in there. They've earned it. But last year, a big wobble in the foundation. And still keep them in there. It was a heck of a 6-year run. They still have the recruiting, still have plenty of talent, still have their setup in not a ton of ACC challengers fighting anywhere close to elite in the country. Roger's with me. Thank you, Roger. Appreciate the support. But I think we're all also kind of in agreement that the odds of that happening ain't good. And even just winning by 7 points, you know, to take that one. So I'm going to underline Wake plus 7.5. You can call it Clemson minus 7.5 if you would prefer. That's one. Tennessee seems to be a popular pick there. All right, we going. Let's talk about Arkansas A&M then. Basically a pick 'em here, right? The line to me means nothing. -2. Arkansas wins this thing by 1, and you lose the bet. So be it, right? That's how Vegas works. So I'm just taking the line out of my mind here. Basically a pick 'em. Neutral site. Texas A&M hasn't looked good, but did get the win against Miami. Did switch quarterbacks. Offense, not good, but Arkansas's pass defense especially, brutal. Arkansas struggled last week. Missouri State. To me, this is kind of a game that Jimbo Fisher sneaks in to make sure his program remains relevant, because I think we talked about the gauntlet before that Texas A&M is about to get into. Let me go back over it. I'm going to click on it right now. And again, it's why, Texas A&M is very much like South Carolina in that way, in my opinion. Hold on before you start yelling or you think I'm a massive homer here. In the way that, especially when we were just talking about Clemson's path, right? Texas A&M is never going to have a clear path. It is never going to be easy, ever, in the SEC West. It's just not, and especially with what this thing looks like now. With Arkansas being so improved. It certainly looked a lot better when Arkansas was not very good, when you didn't have to worry about Ole Miss very much, when Mississippi State didn't have Mike Leach. So A&M, schedule-wise, somebody mentioned they could be 1-5 going into the Carolina game. Well, they bounced back and won that Miami game last week, 17-9. Those points, they scored 31 against Sam Houston. They scored, again, they got to be 17-14 at home to App. They just scored 17 points against Miami. held them to 9, but they're at Mississippi State after this, at Alabama after that, then at South Carolina, home against Ole Miss, Florida, at Auburn. That's the next stretch. Oof. So that's why I say Texas A&M, like South Carolina in a lot of ways, in that the path to a championship, Johnny Football knows all about it, right? Very, very difficult. Let's see what you guys have to say here. Neutral field, right? Arlington, technically. Roger. Wouldn't touch it, Troy says. But if I had to, I'd take A&M. Craig says, yeah, Jimbo may have a get right on offense day Saturday. I don't feel good about that game right now. Brandon, Jimbo at A&M, winless on the road against ranked opponents. Well, I think technically this one's not on the road. Good stat, though. Good to know. How about Joseph weighing in here? Attaboy, Joseph. Vanderbilt to cover against Bama. Saban calls the dogs off in the third quarter to rest the starters for Arkansas. Vandy gets a backdoor cover late. I don't like it. I hate going against those big spreads. And I'm looking it up right now. I think it's in the 40s. And then I hate even it's that feeling I have about watching that score pulling for a cover at 40.5.
I'm your foot.
Yeah, I got no confidence in Vandy to cover that sucker. I understand the line of thinking there. I think it's solid. I appreciate the insight. Not feeling good about it, Joseph. Clemson's number 35 in total defense, top 25 in very few defensive categories. Georgia Tech, Furman, and Louisiana Tech. Better on paper than in performance. Well, that's why you hear Troy saying, oh, I'm really worried about that pass defense. A&M, Roger says, in the Arkansas game, but not confident in saying they cover. Well, if you're saying A&M's going to win, it's just 2 points, man. And we would make it 2.5. We're not having ties. We will keep our record one way or the other in sections of 5, right? We will have 5 results. There will be no pushes. We're not going to get those numbers out of whack. It's the only way I can keep track of them. I trust myself to keep track of it. DC says I take Arkansas. Okay, so we're certainly split there. I'm hearing more A&M. Yeah, maybe it's Brandon certainly wasn't saying A&M, was he? 1 point A&M win. Take Arkansas. All right, we'll skip this one. Certainly nobody's feeling too confident about it. Anybody want to mess with Notre Dame, North Carolina? To make this 7.5, I feel pretty good about taking Mizzou, actually. But not great. Pretty good, not great. It wouldn't shock me if Auburn won that game by 3 touchdowns. You could definitely get the, hey, we're rallying the troops, just got embarrassed. We know our coach is coaching for his job kind of thing. Missouri's not a good football team. They're just not. Kansas State smashed them. Auburn's not a good football team. When you get 2 of those teams and you get the extra added emotional layer in there, I think that's a tough one. As opposed to what we got last week with one bad team, added emotional layer with Nebraska, and then Oklahoma. Troy, Clemson's pass D, not been good when the quarterback's got time to throw, and the screen has hurt us a lot. A lot. I mean, Georgia Tech did it a bunch, right? We stayed in the game for a while. But I guess it's all a matter of perspective, right? For Clemson standards, I think Troy's dead on. For a lot of college football team standards, they would trade for that defense in a heartbeat. All right, if we're not going some of the games that I've highlighted here, let me go back through here, see if anything else pops up. 38.5 NC State is favored against UConn. That one pops out at me. I know those big lines, man. Oh, how about okay, Oklahoma's a 12.5 point favorite against Kansas State. I think I might like that one. I might like a K-State cover. Southern Cal, just a 6-point favorite on the road at Oregon State. That's really interesting, isn't it? Let's explore that. Oregon State, I know, has surprised people this year. I know is a bit of a Cinderella story. I mean, just the fact that the line is what it is. They've got Southern Cal, and then they're at Utah. They've got 3 wins. They're 3-0 this year. Home against Boise State, they won 34-17 to get that program feeling good. Back to being less embarrassing for sure. Beat Fresno State just by 3, but that was on the road, and then won by 40 against Montana State, 68-28 last game. Southern Cal. Again, 6-point spread is all it is. Game's in Corvallis. I think I like that one a lot. I think I like giving very few points away with Southern Cal right now. And it's a late game too, but on the Pac-12 network. Sorry about that. Got the drums pumped up about college football here. I got that little bug. Nope, right on the screen. All right, now it's going to be me versus, I think this is a little mosquito here in the area. I'm ready to snag that sucker. We got live action this morning on the show. Bunch more of you weighing in. So I got little, okay, Notre Dame over North Carolina, Brandon says. I like that pick. Roger says Notre Dame will win and cover that small spread at Chapel Hill. Louisville covers South Florida flat off a tough loss last week. I know absolutely nothing about Louisville, though. I like Notre Dame to cover as well. TA, I appreciate the honesty there. Malik Cunningham, good quarterback. Louisville, not nearly as good as they thought they would be this year. How they seem to do everything possible they could do to lose that game against Florida State last week. Scott Satterfield, I mean, that's another coach. Really interesting, right? Did a great job at App State. I thought was going to get the Louisville program back to being one of the better ones in the ACC, but they just seem to not be able to stay out of their way a lot of times. I need to see that spread. And if you guys are going to mention games that we haven't mentioned yet on the show, you got it in front of you. Please mention the spread as well. What you see. I got 14.5. It's a noon game. Whew, that's a lot. I don't like 14.5. We got the North Carolina game. I mean, North Carolina being a 1.5 favorite. I absolutely love Notre Dame. Yeah, I might have written that down wrong. Let me double check. Yeah, North Carolina is favored, so they don't have to cover any kind of spread. I think they're going to win that game. I'm writing that one down. You guys convince me otherwise. Number 2, Notre Dame plus 1.5. I love that one. Love that pick. They're just a better football team. North Carolina's not that good. Get it there at home. I understand Notre Dame's certainly not the team that we thought they would be. They did play Ohio State relatively close. Marshall happened. TA's liking K-State as well. Craig likes South Carolina. You like Southern, really. This is Southern Cal to cover, right? Tonester's liking Arkansas and Tennessee. Whew. Those are tough. DC's asking, what about Washington? Good close. Ooh, Michigan. Troy's liking Michigan and Maryland. All right, let's go to Washington first because I haven't messed with that. See what they got going on. Going out to the Pac-12 here. We were there with Southern Cal. I really liked Southern Cal. That Oregon at Washington State is another one. Washington State's undefeated as well. Oregon's 6.5-point favorite. That's the 4:00 Fox game. Washington's late game on FS1 doesn't kick until 10:30 our time. Stop yelling at me here, website. But Washington's given 13.5 to Stanford. I don't like that one a bit. Not a bit, DC. All right. Troy, I like where your head's at. Michigan, Maryland. I know they're both undefeated, one of the few, right? I'm going to guess that Michigan is 13.5-point favorite, somewhere in there. 17. Whew. That's a lot of points, man. We'd have to make it 17.5. I mean, if we're just going winners, I'm with you. It's a noon game in Ann Arbor. The Tungavailoas are playing well these days. I don't think I can go 17, man. That one scares me. Not digging it. How about Michigan State is a 3-point underdog at home to Minnesota. Minnesota's off to a 3-0 start. Michigan State 2-1. I think they just lost last week, right? I'm going to go back to their schedule first. Then I'm going to go to Minnesota. Yeah, they just lost by 11 at Washington, though. They had put up, got a 52-0 win against Akron, beat Western Michigan 35-13. I think I'm going to go with that one, guys. I want to see what Minnesota's done. I get it. They're rowing the boat. To me, Minnesota has been that team with the fighting PJ Flex seemingly every time that you can start feeling good about them. They don't. But now I look and they just thumped Colorado 49-7, beat Western Illinois 62-10 before then, New Mexico State 38-0. Whew, impressive. Maybe I don't feel so good about that. At Michigan State, I don't know if I can put my confidence in the fighting Mel Tuckers. All right, Roger likes that one as well. That's a couple of. Craig likes it to cover Southern Cal. Roger likes it as well. I think we got to put that one down. And go back and look at that spread. I'm going to put that one down for now. It's one that we're feeling pretty good about. Southern Cal. In Corvallis. I know, saying that. Funny things happen there sometimes. Lincoln Riley's first trip, right? I think we're basically betting on Lincoln Riley here. Maybe Caleb Williams as well. Jordan Addison, good players. Just 6 points. That's where I'm going. It's just a 6-point spread. You win the game by a touchdown, you cover. We're making it 6.5. Southern Cal, I'm writing it down. So you got Wake plus 7.5, Notre Dame plus 1.5. So this is the first favorite and another road favorite we're betting on here. Southern Cal minus 6.5. Third pick. Love it. Feeling very good about that. Seeing Utah only favored by 15.5 at Arizona State. Piquing my interest. First game in the post-Herm Edwards era. All right, Craig says Southern Cal, Notre Dame, Tennessee, Arkansas, and Clemson. Tennessee, Arkansas, the Tennessee and Arkansas picks. Not with you. We'll go 3 of your 5 picks there, Craig. I think that's fair. No, we're not rounding it out for you, Craig. Need more consensus. DC, talking about the Auburn game, and they stopped Tank. I said no. Yeah, Missouri. I don't know, man. Contain him, yes. Stop him, no. Will that be enough? I like Missouri plus 7.5, but I don't feel completely confident in it. We got 2 picks left. You guys really want to convince me that you think it's going to be Tennessee? At DC, we got the cover for Southern Cal. That's it. Boston College and Navy both getting way too many points. Okay, let's go to those. Troy, trying to hook us up outside the box here. Now, I'm good with like one outside the box, relatively irrelevant pick. I'm not good with 2 of them out of our 5. Just to let you guys know how I think about these things. Boston College at Florida State, 17.5 points. Late game, ACC Network, 8 p.m. kick. Oof, yeah, I don't know, man. Florida State's explosive. How's Jordan Travis out? Let's see. Let's read that one. SU Jordan Travis. Injury update. First thing that pops up. Let's see. Back at practice, moving around yesterday. Status unknown. I ain't touching. To me, that sounds like he's not going to play, especially when you're favored by 17.5. And I don't know how much they need him to play, but that's too much unknown for me to make it one of our 5 picks. Fair? All right, what's the Navy game? I got to go independent here, right? That's a pretty small group. Nope, Navy's not independent. They're in a dang conference. Are they in like the Mountain West or something stupid like that? They're not in the MAC, are they? Conference USA. They should be in Conference USA, right? How can you have a Conference USA and not have Navy or Army in there? Dub? I don't think they are. Double checking here.
I'm the captain of the Pee Wee
I don't know
football
why he
team.
keeps doing that. Just does it for a second just to make us mad. I should probably just press a button over here. There we go. I can't even find Navy. That's how bad I am. Troy, help me out with that. You like Navy getting a bunch of points. Who are they playing? Roger agrees with Tennessee. Knoxville is a tough place to play. Okay. And Craig, he looked pretty good. I mean, good enough to get the win for sure. All right, Chris, back in. Chris, he teased us that he had to leave, but he wanted to make sure he got in on the picks. He likes Baylor and Iowa State. Okay, we're going to check that one. I can find that. Baylor, Iowa State. I don't know if they're playing each other or they're 2 separate picks. Haven't broke down the Big 12. Yep, same game. Noon, ESPN 2 kick. Iowa State, 2.5-point favorite. So I would assume you like Baylor in that one? Chris, what are you thinking? Baylor's already fascinating, I think, this year. Ranked 17th in the country. Coming off the Big 12 championship. Dave Aranda, maybe the most interesting guy in college football. Dave Aranda and Mike Leach should have a buddy cop movie. It would be amazing. So BYU beat them, right? A couple of weeks ago in Utah, 26-20, and they've had blowout wins outside of that against unremarkable competition, let's say Albany and Texas State. Now at Iowa State. Then after that, Oklahoma State at home at West Virginia. So about to hit a big 4-game stretch, maybe you could argue, with Kansas after that, depending on if Kansas can do anything close to what they've already done. Chris, appreciate the heads up on the game. Now, please tell me what you're thinking on the pick. I'm still trying to run down the Navy and Detroit. Maybe they're getting a bunch of points. It should be a top 25 game, right? They're playing a top 25 opponent. Not that I see. Still scrolling. All right. That's good. That's good show stuff, right? Game days in Knoxville. Yep. Aware, DC. They're pumping it up, trying to bring back the history, educate the kids, because a lot of kids out there don't understand that Florida and Tennessee used to be one of the best games, if not the best game in the country, right? Peyton Manning, Steve Spurrier years, top 5 showdowns, certainly top 10 showdowns. But think back in the post-Urban Meyer years, Florida hadn't been what a lot of us know Florida to be, and Tennessee certainly had. So these are 2 programs that desperately want to get back to relevance in major college football. The winner of this game, especially if Tennessee can continue to roll up points like they've done it. Oh, man. But you guys know how it goes on Rocky Top, right? And that's why I haven't touched this thing yet. Chris says definitely taking Baylor, but that 2.5 is fascinating. Really could go either way because Iowa State usually shows up for games like that. Exactly. That's why I'm not messing with it. Craig, SEC Network, I believe, is the noon spot for the Gamecock. I mean, the 7:30 spot, sorry. Wait, I said that. That doesn't make any sense at all. But let me double check for you. I will need to know this. Not planning on going to that game tomorrow. But I could have sworn it was SEC Network. Maybe that's the SEC State game, because it wouldn't make sense that it's the night game on the SEC Network, right? I'm guessing we're going to have to go through the old ESPN app with the SEC Network Plus. And go check that here. No, ESPNU, actually. Okay. South Carolina, Charlotte, ESPNU. Thank you, Roger. You like Baylor to win in Ames? Ugh. In Ames is always weird. I don't know if I'm buying that one. Don't know if I'm feeling comfortable on that one. Love to hear some other suggestions. So right now, up for consideration, we got Baylor minus 2.5, Iowa State. You still got the Arkansas A&M pick out there, the Tennessee Florida pick out there. Florida State 17.5 though with Boston College. Not feeling good about that. How about Northern Illinois as a 26.5 point dog at Kentucky? 26.5. If I had to pick that one, I would definitely take the points. Again, don't love those games. LSU 31.5 against New Mexico. Just looking at the SEC slate right now. Ole Miss getting 21.5 against Tulsa. Mississippi State getting 30.5 against Bowling Green. Georgia getting 45 points against Kent State. Wow. So, rough day. If you're looking for close spreads in the SEC, you got Missouri and Auburn a touchdown. 10.5 Tennessee favorite against Florida. The 2-point Texas A&M spread favored over Arkansas. That's really the only close ones in the SEC. All right, I need to hear some lobbying in the final minutes here. I think you guys good with Baylor? Baylor minus 2.5 at Iowa State. Whew. We're going to go with it. Not feeling great about it. And then where else do we go? You guys got one last push. Where are you going to go? We going to go Arkansas? We going to go Tennessee? How are we going to do it? I don't feel good about 10.5 with Tennessee. I think they're going to win the game. I don't feel good about 10.5. I would feel much better getting 2.5. Is that what would it be? That's what we got it at, right? Yeah, we'll make it a half. I'd feel much better getting 2.5 with Arkansas, but I don't feel great about them winning the game. If I wanted to do one of those where I could feel like I hedged, I would give the 7.5 with Auburn. Where that's just the head over the heart. Yep, DC, we got Baylor covering. That's number 4. So right now we're getting 7.5 with Wake and Clemson. Wake at home. We're getting 1.5 with Notre Dame at North Carolina. So that's one home dog, one road dog. Another road dog, we're giving points away with Southern Cal at Oregon State. 6.5 is what we're giving there. And then another road favorite, given 2.5 with Baylor at Iowa State. Yep, we got Clemson already. But we're calling it Wake Forest. Come on, Craig. But are you guys saying that you want to pick Clemson? You want to get those? You want to give those points? Tennessee from Roger. Tennessee from Craig. All right, Tennessee is what it's going to be. You guys convinced me last week. I trust in you this week. Going to give 10.5. Whew. Tennessee minus 10.5. So those are our 5. We've got Wake to cover 7.5. Notre Dame to cover 1.5 at North Carolina. Southern Cal covering 6.5. We're giving away those 6.5. We've got Wake plus 7.5 there. Notre Dame plus 1.5. Southern Cal minus 6.5. Baylor minus 2.5 at Iowa State. Tennessee minus 10.5 at home against Florida. Write them down. 4-1 after week 1. Hopefully we can at least be above 500 through 2 weeks. We go 4-1 again. We're going to have a lot more numbers Not a lot more eyeballs on this program, maybe the third week that we make these picks. Those are the picks we got. Appreciate you guys, your help this week. Appreciate you guys maybe working through a few issues this week. DC, he's pumped about that. Is that the campfire, or you just think the picks are fire? Chris is going to say K-State at Oklahoma, OU minus 12.5. No, we're not going to do that again. Good push, Chris. We went to that well last week. I'm not feeling it this week. Going with the same teams 2 weeks in a row also worries me on these picks. That is completely overanalyzing college football picks, brought to you by Unrestricted Free Agent on September 23rd, 2022. Hey, have a great weekend, guys. Exactly, Craig. Famous last words, Roger says. Yeah. Thank you guys for the help. Been a fun week. I think it'll be a much different tone next week. At least it better be for Gamecock ball with Charlotte this week as opposed to Georgia last week. We'll see. We'll break it all down. We'll discuss. Sit around the campfire next week, 8 to 10, streaming live every single day. Roger, DC, Chris, Craig, all you guys out there, some new faces today, right? Judo weighed in at some point. Brandon, Tonester, TA. Really appreciate you guys being a part of the show. You make the show. I'm just sitting in my garage yapping. Thanks for making the show. That'll do it for this edition. Tim Hill, Unrestricted Free Agent. See you Monday.